Hi, I'm Steve Cooper. On the eve of 9/11, I went to sleep and had dreams about the events that were actually taking place at that time. It was kind of cryptic, so I didn't really understand them, but in the morning it was obvious it was an exact match. Um, in 2003, I made a video about America, and in that I talked about the dreams that I had on the eve of 9/11. This video wasn't very well made. It's kind of, the colors are messed up. It was one of the first things I ever did, so I just wanted to put it in black and white so it isn't so distracting. Now, if you find these interesting, then another thing that I've included is a separate file, which is excerpts from my book, The Christian Guide to Dragon Slaying. It's a text file, and in that I go into what I see for America's future. So, take a look, and if you're interested, you can get in contact with us. We can tell you more about what we're doing. Thanks.
There's one precise reason that we're distributing this video. We are here to start a war. Not a war of violence and destruction, with bombs and bullets, but rather a war against the forces that have robbed us of our children and our children of their future. We have been compliant too long. We've been docile for so many years that they've been able to wrest a whole generation from our placid, limp hands. They are taking away our nation. What Hitler couldn't wrest from us with his vast army is now being taken without a shot. We must change the way the church reaches out to this generation. On the eve of the September 11th attacks, I fell asleep to a dream that has changed my life forever. In the dream, a giant rock meteor was shooting through the Earth's atmosphere. And it was a very odd shape for a meteor because it appeared something like an arrowhead or large stone jet with swept-back wings and a tail. And the dream terrified me because it came with such authority. I knew that it was from God and that a terrible catastrophe was ahead. The meteor was heading for America, and I began to pray and ask God to save the people from this coming destruction. And as I prayed in my sleep, God began to show me the evils of our nation. I felt the evil of the abortion mills of America and the betrayal of God's truth by so many liberal churches. The dream lasted throughout the night, and even though I continually woke up, the dream would return as soon as I went back to sleep. It was a night of terrible anguish because the more I prayed for protection for America, the more God showed me the deep and terrible sins of our nation. It was as if I could feel God's heart and His reaction to the evil that's become part of our people. As God began to show me how He viewed America, I could feel a special hurt for our nation's past sins towards the Native Americans. The hurt that I shared with God for that moment was deep and very troubling. Although we today are not responsible for those acts, He showed me that it was materialism and covetousness that caused many Americans to take everything away from the Native American neighbors. God said that this covetousness still lives in the heart of America today. I was surprised at God's anger when He explained that even daycare springs from the same greed and materialism that led to the slaughter of the Native Americans. I know that some people are truly forced to use daycare, but most really are not. Americans give up raising their children, one of His most precious gifts to us, in order to make a few extra dollars. In the same way, abortion is often done for the sake of a career or a person's future earning abilities. We are now sacrificing our babies to the god of materialism and financial gain, in the same way that past civilizations once offered their children as sacrifices to other pagan gods. I couldn't argue with God about the unfaithfulness of our nation, a nation that had been so deeply blessed by His grace. So I asked God to have mercy and to save the people from this coming destruction. And finally, after a full night of agonizing prayer and terrible revelations about our nation's sins, with that meteor always streaking through the sky overhead, God spoke to me again in my sleep. And He said that what was coming had to be, and it was not going to be stopped. But because of my prayers, He would mitigate the destruction. And I watched as the large meteor split into several smaller pieces. And I thought that God had broken up the meteor into smaller sections so that some would burn away before hitting the earth. But it was still puzzling that each meteor still had the exact shape of the original. Then some of the meteors disappeared, leaving only 4. And I had no idea what the symbolism was about. So I didn't pay attention to the original number of the meteors. But I now believe that the meteors that simply disappeared represented jets that had been planned to be hijacked, but where their plans had failed. Then the 4 remaining meteors separated, with 2 meteors going to New York and 2 to Washington, D.C. And I saw a large hand come down from the sky, and it swatted one of the meteors to the ground. Then I was awakened that morning by Kevin Mester, a member of our organization, and he was terribly upset, and he told me that we were being attacked on the East Coast. And it all felt very strange and confusing because, like I told him, it all sounded like it was just a continuation of my dream. So I turned on the TV set, and I saw the burning buildings, and I watched as the first tower fell. And I was still thinking in terms of a meteor, and I didn't really know if this was what I had seen in my dreams that night. But as the news unfolded about the other planes, it became clear that everything was exactly as in my dream. This was not and is not a pleasant message to tell. It's a horrible message. It's a message of judgment because the dream was also the foretelling of the end of a great nation that was once founded on the teachings of Christ. We all like to think that the angels look down from heaven singing, "God bless America," but it isn't so. I can tell you that it's just the opposite. Much of the Christian culture nowadays likes to think of Christianity and God along the lines of the TV show Touched by an Angel. But we all need to remember that Sodom and Gomorrah were also touched by an angel. America has betrayed God and abandoned His truth. And thinking we could lose God and lose nothing, we now stand to lose everything. And all of the technology and all of the political and economic strategy in the world will not alter this coming destruction of America. So you might wonder, well, why even bother making this video? The reason we make it is because there's a little escape clause in the Bible. Jeremiah 18:7 says, "If I announce that a certain nation or kingdom is to be uprooted, torn down, and destroyed, but then that nation renounces its evil ways, I will not destroy it as I had planned." The reason that we're making this video is because that little escape clause found in the Bible is the one and only thing in the entire universe that has any hope of saving our nation.